Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County, and this show is about Plymouth County real estate. I'll be reporting on the numbers. This is an October show, but I'll be reporting on the recordings at the registry for September. I have a couple of great guests from my office, Tim White and Christine Richards. Tim's the assistant register. Christine's our system administrator, talking about all the backup and protection we do at our site for our records. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some history in Plymouth County. But first, I'm going to bring up an image on deeds recorded, a bar chart. There were 973 deeds recorded in September, down from the 1,178 recorded in August. As we begin to get in towards the winter, activity drops somewhat. Still 15% more than last September. And year to date, through the first 3 quarters of the year, we're up 15%. The next chart you're going to see is of mortgages. Mortgages are still coming in based upon low interest rates. We receive mortgages for people purchasing homes as well as people refinancing their mortgages to take advantage of a great rate. There were 2,229 mortgages recorded in September, less than the 2,400 in August, but up 24% over last September. Year to date, we're up 9%. Again, mortgage rates are extremely low. We all know the Federal Reserve will be making some kind of movement over the next few months, probably after the presidential election. So anyone thinking of refinancing, it's a good time to move forward. The next image you're going to see is of foreclosure deeds. A foreclosure deed is when a lender has taken back property from an owner. There were 66 foreclosure deeds in September, less than the 71 in August, but 56% higher than last September. Through the first 3 quarters of the year, there have been 36% higher than the same period a year ago. Thankfully, Massachusetts isn't quite as bad as other states. I saw a listing of the top 10 communities, 10 states in the country, and we're not one of those, but there's still a lingering problem with foreclosures. The next document you're going to see is foreclosure notices. That's the first document we receive at the registry when someone's in trouble. 170 notices in September, more than the 141 in August, 34% less than last September, but 10% up over the first 3 quarters of the year. You can see an image of all the foreclosures by community. Clearly, Brockton, Plymouth, and Wareham says foreclosure deeds and orders of notice are the highest in the county. I'm going to talk a little bit about our training program. We offer a free monthly training program. The next one's November 3rd. Come in, learn how to quickly search our system. Be aware of our free property fraud alert. Be aware that sometimes people will try to take advantage of you to get you to pay a lot of money for your deed. You can get it for $1 a page at our office, and that our site has now gone back to a linked index back to 1910 on searching records. And next month we'll talk about a new notary law recently passed by the legislature. Coming up on the next segment is Tim White, my assistant register, and Christine Richards, our IT director, to talk about how we protect our records and the future threat of cyber scams. Thank you. Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this show, we're going to have something very informational. I think it's very important that our public out there watching the show knows how hard we work to protect the data that we accumulate. We're going to talk a little bit about disaster recovery, business continuity, and some of the challenges that are facing us in this modern era. I have two great guests with me today. I have Christine Richards, our system administrator, our department head of our IT department, and Tim White, the assistant register of deeds. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
I know you've both been on the show before and appreciate you answering the call to duty. So, Christine, I'll turn it over to you. A lot of that is in your domain. Why don't you go back and start with microfilm? Because even when registers of deeds oversaw records that were in book form only, that was a mandated state law that required us to keep backup. So in the event of a disaster, a recreation of the registry, that we have microfilm backup for everything.
Well, actually, I've been with the registry for 25 years. So back when I started, the challenge back then was to keep our records safe and keep them safe. Our records back then were in paper form, and we also microfilmed them. We filmed all of our documents page by page, and filmed them and sent the film to Iron Mountain, an underground facility in New York, and that is how we archived all of our documents. And the fear was always a fire, a flood, something was going to damage our records. We've overcome that by now digitizing all of our records. So even though we've overcome the paper format, now we have a digital version, and it's a really great thing. However, we've now run into, well, now we have digitized images, and we need to now protect those in different ways. We need to protect the digitized formats from damage to the network. We need to protect them from damage to a tape or a CD or from hacking.
So back to microfilm. I know
Sure.
a couple of years ago you were very involved in a program that we pulled all our microfilm back from Iron Mountain and checked it for the status. And there's this thing called vinegar syndrome that can damage microfilm. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
We're mandated to inspect all of our microfilm on an annual or biannual basis to make sure it's all intact and make sure we can still read it. And one of the things that we found in a lot of our film was it was infected by vinegar syndrome. And it's almost a microbe that infects it, and you know you have it when you open the film and it has a very strong odor of vinegar. And once that happens, it's irreversible. You now need to recreate the film, get rid of the infected film, and move on. There's also a process where we have some of the film gets a little bit shiny or pitted. And in that case, we also do the same thing. We refilm, take our images, we refilm them. Fortunately, in this day and age, we have microfilm writers where we take the images and we write them directly to film. So gone are the ages where we have to film individually.
So there's actually been some talk about changing the law, eliminating the requirement for microfilm. But what I understand is that actually microfilm has a longer lifespan than pretty much any other type of backup that we might come up with, whether it's tape or CD or whatever it might be.
Yeah, microfilm is projected to have a lifespan of about 100 years.
Right. And digital is about 10, is that what it is?
And digital is probably about 10, depending on the medium. I've never been an advocate of digitally keeping it on disc, because that's been probably the least reliable on CDs or DVDs.
But in this day and age, there certainly is some impetus moving into a different form of backup, whether it's in the cloud or
Right,
wherever it might be.
Yep.
So I know you, Tim, have been pretty involved in our operations in requesting technology money from an account we have access to upgrade things like servers. And I know that one of the important things we have as part of our business continuity plan is a backup server in Brockton. You want to describe that a little bit?
Sure. What we have in Brockton is an exact duplicate of what we have in Plymouth as with regards to servers. And what happens is on a minute-by-minute basis, what we have in Plymouth replicates and duplicates to our Brockton server. So that is constantly replicating to Brockton. So up to the minute, anything that's been recorded in Plymouth or written to Plymouth or scanned in Plymouth or updated, it directly replicates in Brockton, minute by minute. So it's a huge disaster recovery fallback.
So I know during the presidential campaign, there's been a lot of talk about hacking into systems and getting personal emails, personal data. There was a voter base in Illinois that was hacked in. They're charging the Russian government for their involvement in that, and a couple others around the country. And I know that one of the things that we were involved with a couple of years ago was, despite the fact that lenders had required Social Security numbers on every single mortgage people took out, we were the ones left responsible for removing them. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Not only on mortgages, we have Social Security numbers,
Right.
We also had Social Security numbers on tax liens, federal and state tax liens, and we still have them on death certificates. Most recently, federal and state tax liens, they've X'd out the first 5 digits, leaving only the last 4. So we can leave those by statute. However, death certificates still have the entire Social Security number. So even presently, we redact what's currently being recorded. We have also, we took on a project where we redacted all of our Social Security numbers back to day 1. So that is all completed. The public in Plymouth County does not have to worry that their Social Security numbers are at risk because they are all redacted.
It's interesting to see how times do change and how creative the underworld, the criminal factor can become, where in the old days it was just like putting the Social Securities, in the public records was as normal as leaving your car unlocked. And it took a significant amount of time before the federal government and the state government have set forth regulations that tell you that you are, just as Christine said, to redact the first 5 numbers, leaving only the final 4. And the logic in leaving the final 4 is that in our industry, there are occasions where in a person's sales of a property, where the buyer may have the same name as somebody who has filed a bankruptcy. So the only way or one of the ways to verify who the real bankrupt person was and that it was not the buyer is to check the Social Security numbers. So having those final 4 allows the process to continue to its conclusion of the sale.
And on Department of Revenue liens and IRS liens, a common name can really hurt somebody.
Absolutely,
And,
absolutely.
They're trying to get credit. They're trying to get a mortgage to buy a new home, and all of a sudden your name pops up, although it's not you. That's why, although we remove all the other numbers, having the last 4 kind of separates out those with problems and not.
And helps the process to continue forward. It'll have a little bump in the road. It might slow it down a little bit, but by keeping the 4 in there, it allows them to get it done.
Or even some declarations of homestead for disabled and elderly. For disabled, you attach your Medicare or your SSDI to the homestead, And Medicare, for as long as I can remember, has used your Social Security number for your Medicare number. And I know that for my mom's stuff, I've needed to hire a company to get rid of all of her paperwork because that's what's on it.
So let's talk about what is a real hot topic currently. I mean, as technology advances and also advances for the predators and others that are out there, access to government sites become a source of danger and negative things that can happen to you. And I'm going to talk primarily about cybersecurity. We went to a meeting of the Registers Association out in Worcester with all the state registers, and we had this topic just come up this week, a topic we mentioned before but got into with great detail about the importance of having a plan and protecting yourself against ransomware and other threats, hackers that could ruin your system, people that are trying to put threats out there to your system and make you pay money to have that threat move away. Do you want to summarize that a little bit, Christine?
Sure. Yeah, cybersecurity has been a huge topic in not just government, but hospitals,
Right.
stores, all of the big
your
and
home.
everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere, and in your cell phones, it's a huge problem. And companies, government entities, we at the Registry of Deeds are taking it very seriously in protecting our system. There are certainly ways that you can protect your system. There are certainly ways that we are protecting our system without going into a lot of detail. But generally speaking, you want to be very careful of what you do in your everyday life and how you deal with emails, how you deal with your phone, what you plug into your computer, how you, when you open up an email, if it's from somebody you don't know, don't click on it. Don't click on any links within it. If it's somebody you do know and you're not expecting an attachment, call them up. Did you send me something?
Because they can submit something under a name that appeared previously in your computer.
Yep. If your computer is infected, it will go into your address book and it will send out this same virus to everybody in your address book under your name, saying, yeah, I'm Christine Richards, here, I'm sending you this picture. And you open this alleged picture, and it's not a picture, it's now a virus, and it's now infected your computer, and it's now going to send it to everybody in your email.
And that email did not come from Christine Richards.
It did not come, well, it came from my computer.
Even though it looked like
Right.
it, yeah. Even
So-
though it looked like it.
So you just, in these times where cybersecurity is very important, you want to be very, very diligent in what you open, what you send, what you plug into your computer. And we talked about this, if you find a flash drive, sitting on a table or out on the street, don't plug it into your computer. You don't need it. They're cheap enough. Buy your own. Be very careful about plugging your phone to charge into somebody else's computer, because you don't know what's in that computer that can infect your phone.
These are the emails. They can be very insidious. They make it look like it might be from somebody you know, like a Christine Richards. They can also make it appear to be coming from an official government agency, and there's a important message that you have to receive, and you have to click on this link to get it, whether it's from allegedly from the Internal Revenue Service or from the Attorney General's office. Usually it suggests some type of a threat to your well-being, that if you don't respond right away, and the minute you click on these links, they've got you. And what you're risking is your entire database. And what they're doing, we talked a little bit earlier, is that they will send you a message, tell you that we have your database. If you want to get it back, you need to pay to get it back.
Right.
Yep, yeah, it's called ransomware, and they attack your files, and they attach all of your files, and they will give you a key that you can then load into your computer for a certain amount of money. You need to pay them a certain amount of money to get this key to free up your files, and if you don't do it within a certain period of time, your files will automatically delete. And it's affecting huge corporations. So, granted, the everyday person may not get it, but they may.
Right.
You may get it on your computer at home, and it says, yeah, pay $300 and give us your credit card number, and there you go.
Yeah. And they can come from a variety of sources. John, you mentioned earlier that with the Democratic State Committee, the
Voter base.
And the emails that have been hacked, allegedly have been hacked by a nation, by Russia,
Right.
an official country. But there are also organizations out there that do it, for a living. This is how they make their money. Or it could be someone right in your backyard, a disgruntled employee, somebody who's just unhappy. Or it could be somebody who knows that you belong to the Little League, or you belong to a church, and they don't like what those organizations have done to them in the past. Maybe they fired them as a coach or something. And because of your association to them, it puts you at risk. So it's really out there, and it's in everybody's best interest to keep their radar up, to never click on a hyperlink from an email that you're not sure that it was sent to you intentionally by someone you know.
Keep your antivirus up to date, and that is a key. Bite the bullet, buy a good antivirus, and keep it up to date, keep it patched. When you get a notification, and you see that your antivirus is expired, go to Staples, go to Best Buy, go buy it. Spend the money, it's worth it.
Yeah, so we're doing our part to keep our system up and operating, and part of the message today to the public is you have interaction with us, you have the same responsibility to keep your own house clean, your
Exactly.
computers protected, and be aware of it.
Right.
Anything else you want to add, Christine?
No, I think that's, we are diligent, and we scan our system every day to make sure that we keep the public's information safe.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we'll have an update at some point as things change, I'm sure.
On
'Cause
a
it's gonna
daily
be
basis.
It's going to be an issue that'll be with us for a long time as technology continues to improve.
Yeah.
And I do hope that some of the penalties that people like Attorney General Healy are trying to get put in place for cyber threats and things like that come to be, and there's a dissuading factor for people to do this, and actually there's some prosecutions that go on once they can track people down and bring them to justice, because that'll be an influence on minimizing it in the future.
Yeah, and that's what we need, is deterrent. Yeah.
Great. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Great.
Great.
Don't worry, 74 people were picked before me in the NFL draft.
To fight childhood obesity, United Way and the NFL are helping kids play more. To donate or volunteer, go to unitedway.org/play60.
Now I get it.
Welcome back to the Register's Report. I want to thank Tim White and Christine Richards for their presentations. In this segment of the show, we always try to do something lighter in nature. And the holidays of the month of October, Columbus Day has passed us, United Nations Day is the 24th, and certainly the upcoming Halloween is something that everyone recognizes. This is our last show before our presidential election on November 8th. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the connections to our nation's presidents in Plymouth County, and talk a little bit about how in this election year we've certainly seen a lot of negativity, but that is nothing new in presidential politics. So let's talk about Abraham Lincoln. His great-great-grandfather, Samuel Lincoln, settled in the town of Hingham. He came from Hingham, England, and in 1649 built a house on a couple acres in Hingham, well recognized within the town of Hingham. At the time, the property was in Suffolk County, but Hingham has a great recognition of the history of the Lincolns. There's a nice statue of Abraham Lincoln in Town Square. They do a history day every year at the church that his grandfather was involved with, the old ship church on Lincoln's Day. And again, a lot of people don't remember that even in Abraham Lincoln days, presidential politics was a blood sport. There were a lot of accusations about his looks. He was called, and caricatures were made of him as a baboon, and a lot of controversy during the elections of the time. So you see that image on a notable land record of Abraham Lincoln. The next one I'm going to bring up is an image of Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland was the 22nd and 24th president, the only president that was elected, defeated, and then re-elected to his position. He spent a lot of time in Plymouth, down in the Manamet section in particular. Used to hunt and fish down the Idlewell Hotel back then. He bought a lot, although he never built on it. He then bought a house over on the Cape, was well known for his traveling around this area. But however, during one of his campaigns, because he had fathered an illegitimate daughter, there was a lot of controversy. He later married the mother of that child, who at the time was age 21, but there wasn't a lot of social media or any social media. In those days, newspapers were dominant. However, there was a chant that was brought forward by his opponents that said, "Ma, ma, where's my pa?" And that became a rallying cry for his opponents. Because of his child. And after he won his second term, Cleveland supporters would answer that by, "Mama, where's my pa? He's in the White House, ha, ha, ha." And the next image is of one of our Massachusetts presidents, John F. Kennedy. His grandfather, Honey Fitzgerald, owned property in Hull on Nantasket Ave. He was a very active political person. Honey Fitz was himself on the Common Council, Congress, Mayor of Boston. But when John F. Kennedy was running for president, there was a lot of controversy, and in particular, because he was the first Irish Catholic and the only Irish Catholic president, that there were stories that went around that the Pope would be running the country. So he had to overcome his Irish Catholic heritage and religion before he was elected president. So certainly in this election, we've seen a lot of going back and forth by the candidates, but with every presidential election, there's been some of that. And once we get past November 8th, hopefully it quiets down again. But I want to thank PAC TV for putting this show together with me. I want to thank Ben Alexander, who put the cameras together and is working the control room. Sharing this information with people across Plymouth County is important, so you understand how to protect what for most people is the most valuable asset. So I will see you next month, and don't forget to vote on November 8th. Thank you.